Who left the blood-stained ribbon by my mother's grave? The question came to me before the pain did, before I noticed the raw scrape across my ankle or the dust caked in my throat. It hovered in the hot air like a half-whispered warning. The ribbon wasn't torn, but it was stained deep red, dried at the edges, tied in a loop only my mother had known. I stood there barefoot in the grit, my palms trembling against my skirt, the July sun making the world shimmer like a dream I didn't trust. The grave hadn't been disturbed, just the ribbon resting at the base of the wooden cross Papa had carved the day she died. Mama had been gone 3 years, and I still hadn't cried the right way. Not loud, not soft, just hollow like a bell with no tongue. She used to tell me that love was the most dangerous kind of fire. It warmed you for a season, then left your bones ash. I didn't know if I believed her, but I'd seen what it did to her. She died with a man's name on her lips, and I never got to know. I was 18, still untouched by choice and by fear. Not for lack of longing, I longed more than I breathed, but for lack of someone who'd stay after the longing passed. Our home sat on the edge of nowhere, just a sliver of land near Widow's Edge, a cliff where the wind never stopped testing your will. Beyond that lay Iron Hollow, a town with too many saloons and too little truth. There was no sheriff anymore. Not really. Not since Marshal Elam Sutter declared himself the law. He didn't wear the badge so much as own it. Folks said he cleaned up Iron Hollow, but all I saw were cleaner lies and deeper graves. Only one man still clung to the old ways, Father Josiah the preacher. Every Sunday he rang the church bell, though his congregation had long thinned out like the hair on his crown. I liked him. He was quiet in a way that didn't feel empty. The morning the ribbon appeared, something shifted, the kind of shift you feel in your teeth before a storm. I took the ribbon, folded it like a secret, and placed it in my apron. Then I went back to the house and poured water from the jug into the basin, trying to scrub the sense of being watched from my skin. That's when I heard it, a groan ragged and close. Not the wind, not the old boards settling. Something human. I stepped out slow, the rifle still mounted over the fireplace. Didn't grab it. He was crumpled by the well. A man, or what was left of one. His shirt was soaked with blood, shoulder torn open like a wolf had taken a bite. His face was dust-covered, sunburnt, but under it youth sorrow and something far more dangerous, silence. I should have run, or screamed, or fetched Josiah. But I did none of those things. "Can you hear me?" I asked. He opened one eye. Gray as dry iron. "Am I dead?" he rasped. "Not yet," I said. Then he passed out cold. There are things a girl isn't supposed to do. Dragging a half-dead man into her smokehouse is one of them. I did it anyway. I laid him down on burlap sacks and salted earth. Boiled water tore up Mama's last bedsheet and cleaned the wound as best I could. It wasn't fresh. He'd been running with that hole in him for at least a day. When he came to, the sun had dipped low. Shadows made strange shapes on the walls. "You should have left me," he murmured. "I considered it," I said. His lips twitched almost a smile. "Got a name, Clara. Clara May Delaney." He nodded once. "Call me Jesse." He didn't tell me what happened. Not at first, just that he wasn't running from something, he was circling back. To what I didn't ask. But I knew what that meant. He had the look of someone who'd buried more than he could carry. And maybe someone who wanted to believe he could still be saved. I fed him broth in silence. He winced when he moved, but never asked for more than what I gave. That told me he'd spent time with people who took. That night, I sat by the window and watched the moon climb. The ribbon lay beside me, still stiff with dried blood. Jesse breathed shallow in the smokehouse, and something in me shifted. It wasn't just the fear. It was the knowing deep in my gut that the life I'd kept hidden behind picket fences and unspoken rules had just been cracked open by fate, or something worse, Something had brought Jesse here, and something else had left that ribbon. They were connected. I could feel it in my bones, and when the wind howled across Widow's Edge, it carried not just dust and desert, it carried warning. By morning, Jess's fever burned like a curse. He murmured in half sentences, names I didn't know, places I'd only heard spoken of in whispers. Every now and then, he'd say my name without knowing it, Clara, not as a plea, but as if it already belonged to him. I sat outside the smokehouse, shotgun across my lap, the ribbon folded in my apron pocket like a blood-wrapped secret. The sun hadn't yet cleared the ridge, but the heat rose anyway, clinging to my skin like guilt. That was when I saw the dust trail coming down the old ridge road. Fast. Determined. Elam Sutter. He rode like he didn't need the ground's permission. His horse kicked up gravel in silence. Marshal Elam Sutter was a man stitched together from scripture and sin. Long black coat, silver badge, a ring made from a railroad spike worn on the wrong hand. He didn't get down, just sat there, high in the saddle, surveying me like a man measuring lumber. "Well now," he said, voice smooth as worn leather, Miss Delaney. "Still all alone out here with the ghosts. I manage," I replied, matching his stillness, though every part of me wanted to reach for the rifle. "Got trouble in Iron Hollow. Bank's been hit, one man dead. Word is, the bastard was wounded. Might 've dragged his bleeding soul up this way." I kept my voice cool. "Only tracks I seen belong to coyotes. And they mind their manners better than most men." He laughed. "But not kindly. Funny. You always had sharp words, Clara. I remember your mother's tongue, too. Same flame. She had more flame than you could ever carry," I said. That earned a long stare. "Elam?" I added, tipping my chin. "You here to ask questions? Or lay judgment?" He smiled thin. "Judgment comes when the truth gets buried. And I'm in the business of digging." He turned his horse without another word, but I didn't breathe again until the dust swallowed him whole. He left the taste of iron in the air. That evening, just before dusk, Deputy Miles Hagan showed up. Unlike Elam, Miles dismounted, brushed the dust off his sleeves, and walked to my porch like he still thought he had a right to the past. "You look well," he said. "You look like a man who's about to ask something he already knows the answer to." He smiled boyish, like the Miles who used to bring us cinnamon bread after Mama died. But the softness in him had long since curdled. "Elam says to double-check out this way. Says the man might be hiding in plain sight. Says you've got a soft heart when it comes to broken things. And you think I'd hide a fugitive out here alone?" "Not alone," he said, eyeing the smokehouse. "Rumor says the man was shot in the shoulder, bled through half the canyon." I didn't blink. "Rumors don't grow crops, Miles." He stepped closer, lowered his voice. "You think you're special to Elam because you're clever. You're not. You're just quiet. Quiet women are useful until they're not." I let the silence settle between us like a trap. Then I said softly, "Do you ever think about what they did to Papa?" His jaw twitched. Just once. Then he turned, mounted, and left without another word. But I'd seen it, the flicker. He wasn't lost. Not entirely. Just afraid to be the man he once wanted to be. That night, I returned to the smokehouse. Jesse was awake. Barely. His face, pale shirt soaked again. "You should run," I said. "You didn't. I have no place to run from." He looked at me like he was seeing through the skin of things. "What did Sutter say? That ghosts don't stay buried." Jesse gave a bitter smile. He would know. The next morning, I rode to Iron Hollow for gauze salt and the sort of herbs Mama used to boil when fever wouldn't break. The town felt different now, tight-lipped and brittle. Shutters closed even when the sun was high. Men carried rifles like prayer books. The church bell was silent. At the general store, I crossed paths with Ruthie Tanaka, the innkeeper's daughter. She was always graceful in a quiet, folded way. Her kimono sleeves tucked into her apron, her braid looped like her mother used to wear it. In a town like Iron Hollow, she was a question no one dared answer. She brushed past me and whispered, "Don't speak here. Follow me." I hesitated, then did. Behind the store in the alley where the butcher's smoke drifted like ghosts, she handed me a folded paper. "Read it alone," she said. "If I vanish, it's because I opened the wrong drawer in Elam's office. You didn't hear that from me." I stared at her. "Why me?" Ruthie looked me in the eye. "Because you still believe in right and wrong. That's rare out here. Hold on to it." Then she disappeared into the smoke. That night, under a single flickering lantern, I unfolded the paper. It was a ledger. Names, money, dates, signatures, payoffs, and at the bottom, Elam Sutter, authorized by Deputy Miles Hagan. The ink felt hot on my fingers. I sat there a long while, Jessie sleeping in the next room, my pulse loud in my ears. The ribbon, the man, the Marshal, the girl who dared whisper truth. I wasn't just hiding a fugitive now. I was holding the match to a system built on dry kindling, and whether I wanted to or not, I was going to have to choose which part of me would burn. The morning after Ruthie gave me the ledger, I couldn't eat. Couldn't breathe right. I sat on the porch with Mama's quilt wrapped around my shoulders, even though the sun was already high, burning down through the desert haze. Jesse watched me quietly. He was getting stronger, walking without wincing, binding his own shoulder. But he didn't press. "You've been staring at that ridge for an hour," he said. "I keep expecting her to walk over it. She won't." I didn't flinch. She gave me truth, and I gave her a grave. "She chose the grave," Jessie said gently. "You choose what you do next." That afternoon, I found a bundle behind the cabin, neatly wrapped in Ruthie's blood-stained apron. Inside, her broken comb, a piece of her mother's sash, and a small kanji pendant cracked straight through. Whoever left it knew it'd understand the message. Ruthie wasn't missing. She was gone. I buried the bundle next to Mama under the shade of the creosote. The soil was dry and cracked. My hands trembled with every scoop. "I wasn't brave enough," I whispered. "But I will be." That night, Jessie laid the ledger between us like a shared sin. "We can't hold this alone," I said. "It has to become more than paper." He nodded. "Then we find someone who still believes in justice. There's only one man left who speaks that word without spitting." I found Pastor Josiah Boone at the church, sitting in the front pew, his Bible closed on his lap. The sanctuary smelled like dry wood and regret. He looked older than I remembered. Not in years, but in weight. "I need your eyes on something," I said. He read in silence. Page after page. When he reached the end, he exhaled like he'd been holding his breath since the war. "Do you believe it?" I asked. He met my eyes. "I've always believed Elam was the devil. I just never had the scripture to prove it." "What now?" He rubbed the cover of his Bible. "I once stayed silent when Elam took a boy from his mother's home. Said the boy stole flour. But it wasn't flour. It was a hymn book. I did nothing. That's when I stopped being a preacher and started playing one." He stood, spine creaking. "We gather those who remember what justice used to taste like, and we make a stand." By the time the moon rose, 7 souls had gathered in the old barn behind the church. A widow named Edna, who once taught the town's children 2 aging cowhands, who'd buried their brothers under Elam's, watch a shopkeeper named Clive, Pastor Josiah, Jessie, and me. Jessie unwrapped the ledger like a sacred relic. "This isn't just evidence," he said. It's a road map. Every name in here has been bought or buried, including the man who signed most of the payouts, Deputy Miles Hagan. Josiah nodded solemnly. If we expose this, we fracture the whole town. Good, said Edna, hands shaking but voice firm. Let it break. Someone knocked on the barn door then. We froze. It was a boy. Dusty, thin, breathless. One of the orphans Ruthie sometimes fed behind the inn. He held a piece of paper in his hand. A man said to give you this, Miss Clara, he said. Said it was for your eyes only. I opened it under the lantern. Next, grave's yours. Tick-tock. It was written in ash across butcher's parchment, nailed through with a black railroad spike. Jessie took it from me slowly, eyes narrowing. He's escalating. He knows we're moving, I said, and he's warning us to stop. Jessie looked at the others. If we wait, he kills more. If we act now, we risk everything. Clive spoke. You risked your life just stepping into town, Pinkerton or not. You think we're not willing to match that? Edna raised her chin. Ruth's blood is still wet in my prayers. Pastor Josiah looked at me. What do you say? Clara May? All eyes turned to me. I looked at Jessie. He didn't speak. He just watched steady like a man offering a flame and asking if I'd carry it. I stepped forward. We go to Santa Fe. Jessie delivers the ledger. The rest of us stay. We hold the town together. And if Elam comes for us, he won't find us unarmed. Jessie left before dawn. We didn't speak much that morning, but before he mounted up, he took my hand and placed something in it. It was a small charm Ruthie's pendant. He'd found the other half near the ridge. When I come back, he said, Well, fix it. I nodded. You sure you're ready to lead? He asked. I'm not sure of anything, I replied, except that I won't run. He touched my face just once, gentle like a man afraid of breaking something holy. Then he rode into the rising light. The wind howled over the widow's edge that evening. I stood on the porch, rifle in hand, ledger copy, hidden beneath the floorboards and eyes fixed on the path Elam would likely ride in on. I didn't know when, but I knew it would be soon. And this time, I would not be the one to bury the brave. This time, I would bury the wicked. Jessie had been gone 3 days when the first body vanished. Tom's Alder, the blacksmith, quiet, half Navajo, always respectful. He never made it home from his forge. They found his hammer cooling in the sand, a single crow feather tied to its handle with twine. No tracks. No blood. Just silence shaped like a man. Iron Hollow grew quieter after that. Windows shuttered, horses stabled early, and the church bell didn't ring for fear it would draw attention. Even the saloon girls stopped singing, and me, I stopped waiting for Jessie. I started preparing for Elam. The ledger stayed buried beneath the cabin floor, wrapped in Ruthie's apron next to her broken pendant, and a bullet Jessie left behind. I touched them every night like charms against fear, like pieces of people who dared believe truth could outlive terror. On the 4th morning, Miles Hagan returned. He didn't knock, just leaned against my porch rail, hat in hand, eyes hollow. You look like someone sleeping with ghosts, he said. I buried better men than you, I replied. He half smiled like he didn't disagree. I'm not here for threats, just truth. I said nothing. Silence has a way of forcing confession. I know what's in the ledger, he said. I know I signed my name to things I shouldn't be. I thought if I took the bribes, I could protect the ones Elam didn't see. You told yourself you were saving lives while letting others burn. I was 23 and stupid, he said. Now I'm older and haunted. He took a small envelope from his coat. Maps. Patrol routes. Who's loyal? Who's scared? I can't undo what I did. But maybe I can help end it. He left it on the step and walked away without looking back. By sunset, they found Clive, the shopkeeper. always polished his spectacles twice before handing over anything. Hung from the water tower like a warning flag, a torn page from the ledger pinned to his chest with a railroad spike. Josiah and I cut him down together. We buried him before the coyotes found the scent. He was the first man to sell me a book after the war, Josiah whispered, pressing the dirt flat. Said reading was the only rebellion left. He was right, I said, and now he's proof that truth costs more than most can afford. That night, the town came to the chapel. Farmhands, widows, the barmaids from Luella's. Even old Ben Cooper, who hadn't spoken since his son was shot by mistake. They filled the pews with shotguns hidden in hymn books and grief worn like armor. I stood in front of them not because I was braver, but because no one else would. I didn't ask for this, I said, but I'm not the girl who buried her mama in silence anymore. I held up Ruthie's pendant. This is what bravery looks like, broken, cracked, but carried forward. We have Elam's secrets. We have his names. We have proof. A murmur passed through the pews. And if he walks in that door tonight, I said he won't find us praying. Hell find us ready. Josiah stepped forward, rested a hand on my shoulder. The Bible says, resist not evil, he said softly. But it also says, there's a time to turn over the tables. I smiled through tears. Then let's flip the whole damn church. The bell rang once, twice, 3 times. We froze. Josiah's face turned ash. That's the signal. Riders, Edna said, peering through the side window. 5 of them, Elam in the lead. I walked to the altar and placed the ledger there, pages open light from the candles flickering over the inked names like ghosts rising. We formed a line. No guns raised, just eyes steady, shoulders squared. The doors creaked open. And he stepped in. Marshal Elam Sutter. Black coat brushing the floor like a preacher in morning boots, polished pistol low on his hip. His eyes scanned the room like he was reading his own obituary in advance. Well, he said, if it ain't the widow's edge orphan and her little congregation of cowards. No one's kneeling anymore, I replied. He walked down the center aisle, each step echoing like a bell toll. You think paper makes you righteous? No, I said, but it makes you accountable. He stopped at the altar, staring at the open ledger. Truth doesn't scare me? I stepped forward. That's because you've never had to answer to it. Elam looked at me not like prey, but like something he didn't understand. You think you're justice? You're a girl with dirt under her nails and fire in her eyes. And fire dies. Then burn me, I said. But I won't die alone. And I lifted the broken pendant from my pocket and placed it on the ledger, 2 halves of a truth that wouldn't stay buried. His smile faltered. The room held its breath. 1 heartbeat. 2. He turned to leave, but behind him, a shotgun racked. Josiah. I buried 1 son, he said. I won't bury a town. Elam didn't flinch. Not at the shotgun behind him, not at the townsfolk whose silence had finally broken into stares. His eyes scanned the pews like they were empty chairs, like he still owned the room. He looked at me standing at the altar beside the open ledger, and Ruth's mended pendant, and said in a voice smooth as rusted silver, You think all this paper pews, frightened eyes makes you righteous? No, I said, but it makes you accountable. And he smiled. Not afraid. Not yet. The first blast shattered a side window. Screams. Glass. Then the smell of smoke. Josiah spun toward the sound, and in that split second, Elam moved, grabbing the ledger, pushing past me, and firing his pistol into the ceiling as a diversion. Townsfolk ducked. Lanterns tipped. Chaos unfurled like wildfire. Outside, more shots rang out. Miles burst in through the side door, blood trailing down his temple. They flanked us, he shouted. 2 more men outside throwing fire. The chapel erupted into confusion. Through the smoke, I saw Elam dragging a child, the youngest of Ruthie's orphans, by the collar ledger under one arm, pistol in the other. I couldn't breathe, not because I was afraid, because I remembered that boy's eyes the day Ruthie gave me the list. They were the same eyes Mama had when Papa died, wide, stunned, full of unanswered prayers. My feet moved before my thoughts did. I snatched Josiah's fallen shotgun, the pendant still clutched in my fist. The chapel behind me was ablaze and shouting, but all I saw was Elam and that boy moving toward the graveyard behind the church. Smoke curled along the earth. Ash drifted like falling prayers. I found him among the graves, shoving the child toward a saddled horse gun still drawn. "Let him go," I shouted. Elam turned calm as ever. "There she is," he said, "the preacher, the judge, the executioner. Let him go." He shrugged. "You think killing me makes you clean?" "No," I said, "but letting you live would make me like you." He reached for his weapon. I pulled the trigger. The shot cracked across the hollow and dropped him hard to the dust. His gun skidded. The boy ran. Elam tried to sit up, blood soaking through his coat, eyes still sharp even in pain. "You'll build your life on this moment," he rasped, "and it'll rot from the inside." I knelt beside him, laid the pendant next to his hand. "No," I said. "This moment is where it stops rotting." By the time the others reached us, Elam was slipping in and out of consciousness. Miles and 2 townsmen hauled him up. He didn't struggle, just muttered half hymns and half threats like he couldn't tell heaven from hell anymore. They took him to Santa Fe in chains. He never returned. Jesse arrived that night. Dust-covered, exhausted, but alive. He rode into town holding a federal warrant signed and sealed. The judge had seen the ledger, the names, the bodies. Justice had finally outpaced corruption. I met Jesse at the chapel steps. "You held it," he said softly. "Barely," I replied. He reached into his coat and pulled out the other half of Ruth's pendant. "It belonged here," he said, joining it with the one I still wore. We were always meant to carry it together. And for the first time since Mama died, I felt something settle inside me, something whole. The town changed after that. We rebuilt the chapel's roof together, plank by plank, nail by nail. Miles stayed. He never asked for redemption, but he earned it quietly. He helped bury Clive's boots in the soft clay behind the church and never once missed Sunday service. Josiah preached again, but never from the pulpit. He spoke from the street under open sky where no one could be locked out. And me, I stayed. I wore the pendant every day, not as a relic of pain, but as a reminder that I could live without fear. Weeks later, Jesse and I stood at the edge of Widow's Bluff. The wind rolled soft across the plains. Below us, Iron Hollow was alive with music, children's laughter, and the rhythm of a town that had learned to choose its own story. He asked, "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you'd left with me?" I nodded. "All the time. And I would have loved you, but I would have hated myself for walking away." He didn't try to kiss me. He just reached for my hand. And in the quiet of that moment, I realized the girl who had once only dreamed of being loved had become the woman who had learned to love without needing permission. The West never wrote stories for girls like me, but I wrote mine anyway, and the land remembered, not in blood, but in bloom. At its heart, this story isn't just about the dusty backroads of the Wild West or the echo of gunfire in a forgotten chapel. It's about courage, not the kind that rides in with 6-shooters, but the quiet kind that stands tall when truth is inconvenient, when love feels dangerous, and when doing what's right might cost you everything. Clara's journey is a mirror for all of us who've faced crossroads when silence was easier than speaking up, when loyalty to a broken system felt safer than building something better, or when our past whispered louder than our dreams. For those of us past 40, we've lived enough to know that freedom isn't handed to you. You earn it with small acts of clarity, of defiance, of care. Whether you're standing up to corruption, caring for a lost soul, or finding new purpose in a life that once felt routine, this story reminds us it's never too late to be the hero of your own life. And sometimes redemption doesn't ride in on a horse. It arrives in the form of a choice you didn't think you were brave enough to make until you did. You've just heard one powerful story, but many more remain untold. Click to discover more raw, gripping, deeply human tales from the Wild West.